Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Klein, and I'm thrilled to be your guest host for this special edition of Vital Voices Live. Now, there are some people who use their platform to entertain, and others who use it to enlighten, challenge, and inspire. Our guest today does all of the above. You may know her from your favorite shows, but what truly sets her apart is how she shows up off-screen as a fearless advocate, a truth teller, and a relentless champion for justice, equity, and human rights. She's the kind of woman who doesn't wait for permission to speak up, and she brings everyone with her when she rises. Please help me welcome the unstoppable Sophia Bush.
Thank you. I'm like, can I get a just snip of that recording so I can play it to myself when I'm having a bad day?
Yes, although you've said so many things that provides that for so many people. And I'm going to actually start with one of those, which is you've said you can't unknow what you know. So I wanted to ask you, how has that principle guided your evolution as an activist and a leader, especially when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable?
Well, I think figuring out what ails us, and I mean in terms of community, society, the planet, is always a little inconvenient and uncomfortable. It can be very destabilizing to the life you lead that you like, to the things that feel easy for you when you realize that ease comes for some people by design and is purposefully withheld from others, likewise by design. But I think what becomes important is if there's something that you care about, if there is an injustice you witness, a problem you see that you know you could fix, whatever it is that begins your journey of pulling at the thread to learn more, to research more, that's the kind of stuff it'll be like an itch you can't scratch. It'll keep you up at night. It'll drive you crazy. And I think when you take the thing that drives you crazy and you realize that that is a calling, that perspective shift can help you be really brutally honest and relentlessly ferocious, passionate. You know, you can kind of fill in what word feels good to you there. It will make you relentless in the pursuit of fixing that thing. And if every single one of us was relentless about trying to fix something, instead of 30-something% of us being relentless about trying to break everything, we would be in a great position, I think.
And you have actually been relentless in trying to fix a lot of things, which is one of the things I really most admire about you. Is I feel like what you just said is really the way your activism takes shape. You find something, you hear about something, you research it, and it moves you, but it doesn't move you to just learn more, it moves you to act. So just a sample of what you've done. You co-founded I Am a Voter. You were a founding member of Time's Up, which is where we first met. You were a global ambassador for Glamour's The Girl Project, and you penned an op-ed on why the right to abortion matters for every person after the Dobbs decision, which I don't know if I've ever told you this. I read while I was in the White House, and it was extremely moving and helpful and inspiring to me and to us who were in there trying. And you're generally an outspoken advocate for reproductive freedom. So why is it important for you to try to use your platform to personalize politics for people?
I think for me, the importance, the thing I can't stop doing, no matter how many people tell me I should, no matter how many crazies are on the internet, or, even my dad every once in a while will be like, I'm worried about you, kid. You really seem like you're just picking this target up and putting it on your back every day. Do you really, I love you, but do you need to be such a pain in the ass to these people? He's very sweet. For me, it feels important to acknowledge where we come from. And I know that feels really timely because we are battling a moment where the people in power are literally trying to deny our history or our ability to learn our own history. But I think it goes deeper than that. It's not just about, the greatest success of founding the world's longest standing democracy for all her faults or the terrible things that were done in pursuit of that. It's not just the good, the bad, and the ugly, and sometimes I think the beautiful. It's more granular and incremental, the way I see it. I think anybody my age, certainly any of the great young people that I work with who are, Gen Z, I'm a millennial, we can forget that everything that makes our life flow, everything that makes things we take for granted feel easy, like opening a door and stepping onto the street and breathing air that won't kill you, or turning the tap and having water come out of it, or being able to flush a toilet or drive down a street with a working stoplight. Those are things we take for granted. They just exist. But those are the results of policy. Those things are results of political decisions that were made. So when people ask me, like, oh, why do you have to be so political? Everything is politics. You and I can only have a credit card without a man signing for it for us since 1974. Like, my mom couldn't get a credit card when she was an independent woman living on her own in New York City. Up until 8 years before I was born. Like, this is nuts. This is in our lifetime. And so I think it's really important to get out of the, whack, like 800 pages of the next stimulus bill hitting the desk in, the halls of Congress, and the just droning of the people reading like page 664. We get it. I think people like us have to be able to talk about why politics is actually in the fiber of everything that happens in our lives, because political power was meant for me and you and everyone in this room to be able to participate. If that power is only being participated in or being shifted in the hands of those who already have it, who sit in the upper echelons of culture, the economy, the global economy even, it isn't going to work for the rest of us. And we need it to work for us. It's why that phrase, there are more of us than them, is so crucial. And I think they want us to pay less attention. And so early in my career, doing the, but I love him on TV, which was very popular, I was like, oh, this is a really big platform. And yeah, this is fun. Don't get me wrong. I love my job. But what I really want to do is talk to people about how we take care of each other better.
Yeah, you've made so many important points, but just to note a couple. One is exactly what you just said, which is sort of understanding your own power, but also using that to help people understand their own power. Really important point. And the other one is, a point that I don't even know if you meant to make, but I think about all the time, which is that, our job right now, particularly in this world, in this country, is to show people how democracy delivers for people. Show people that policy is not that, it is. It comes from that, giant reconciliation bill that's being, yelled about over there, and it's a lot easier to just sort of forget that that exists because it's exhausting to listen to them. But it's really about what's in there is about how it will change your lives and how the people we put in place to work on those kinds of policies, that's democracy. And if we don't participate, it's not going to deliver for us. But if it doesn't deliver for us, we're not going to participate.
Yeah.
So speaking of power, a lot of your work has been about and rooted in collective power. So what have you learned about building movements that center listening as well as leading?
A lot.
That's a hard question.
It's a big question because I realize I'm now at a point in my life, when you've been a working adult for 20 years, you're like, oh my God, I'm the adult in the room now quite often. That's a weird feeling. And I think about the 20 years of lessons, starting in 2007 on my first, volunteering on a political campaign, It's been such a gift to be in rooms with people who are smarter than me. I think it's a really valuable lesson, particularly when you show up to give your time. You know, the expectation is you're volunteering, you're outputting, right? And there were so many rooms I went into with people that I was in awe of, and I learned to just show up and then shut up and listen to what they had to say. And before you know it, over the years, you'll become a person that's helping lead in a room like that. And I think what it taught me before I had the words for it was that sort of relay race spirit, you know, engagement in your community, making the world a better place for people, ensuring that everyone has rights, whether they're your people or not. That is long work. It's not quick. It doesn't do the thumb drag, refresh 40 new photos on Instagram or however many new videos on TikTok. It requires patience and persistence and reflection and editing and all the things that we don't really make space for in the world today. And the greatest gift of those spaces for me was just to sit and listen and learn so that I could become a person that could continue to amass knowledge, points of view, and who could then be wise enough to understand how to analyze a system or a group of opinions like this and hold them all. The thing that I think our goals should be is to be the sorts of people who can hold many things to be true at the same time and gracefully and ferociously choose to fight for the best good of the most people with all of that information. But I wouldn't have been able to articulate this in 2007. And so I know everything is moving very, very fast, but I think if we could just take a breath and remember that the investment in each other, it's long, it's generational. And I think sometimes that reminder can be the thing that can shift the part of yourself you respond from. You can respond from your wisdom rather than your fear. You can respond from patience rather than panic. And everything that's happening right now, particularly to women, is designed to create fatigue and panic. And so I think our patience and our willingness to gather in community and bargain collectively and undo some of the messaging of the system that has never wanted us to succeed in the first place, it's graceful, but it's radical as fuck too. And I like that. Like, that balance is where I would like to live.
I think you do.
I try.
Okay. So you've been called a lot of things, and I mean the good things.
Oh, thank you.
Actress, activist, storyteller. But when you take away what other people call you, how do you, this is a very personal question, you can also just say pass, but like, how do you define yourself? What drives you?
That's a good question, Jen. I think if I were to strip away any title that might be given to me based on work or volunteer work, you know, all the things we do out in the world, the things I feel that I am, always have been and forever will be a student. I am 4 decades in, finally at a space in my life where I take pleasure in being a partner. I am so proud to be a friend to the people in my life. And like, the radical edge of my seesaw is that I really enjoy being an accomplice.
So you once said, when you use your voice, it gets stronger, which is so simple and yet so profound. So when was the moment that you realized that you had power beyond the screen, that using your voice wasn't just reading somebody's lines?
Yeah. You know, I think that idea when you use your voice, it gets stronger, sort of was my next step to that famous quote, use your voice even if it shakes. Because I think when you first start to say the uncomfortable thing or to stand up for someone else, it can be scary. It can be in the shakiness. I know for me, for our friends here, in case anyone who doesn't know, or our friends listening at home, I started working on a television series on the WB in the early aughts. It wasn't like an awesome time for women in entertainment or media in general. And it felt so creepy. And I think it felt especially creepy to me because I'd come from this, starting in 7th grade, small, all girls, very academic, deeply nerdy, my absolute heaven on earth school. There were 55 girls in my graduating class. And then suddenly I'm playing like the hot chick on the WB and I'm supposed to be seducing guy athletes in high school. I'm like, what is cheerleading? Like, what? I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. But the internet at that time, the tabloid media at that time, just what it wanted to do to women was trash. I love you, Britney Spears. It was bad for all of us. And my reaction to that, being portrayed as someone I wasn't, certainly being portrayed as less intelligent than I was, all of it felt so creepy. I thought, I'm just gonna withdraw and do less. I don't really wanna be in this. This water feels dirty, And then, full transparency, I was very judgy when Twitter first started. I was like, nobody cares about your breakfast. Newsflash, I follow all the food blogs, so I do. But at the time, I was like, this feels really stupid. Why are we doing this? Who's gonna put themselves out here willingly? And then Deepwater Horizon happened. And as a kid who was lucky enough to grow up in California and know the incredible privilege of being able to, be in the snow up in Mammoth at daybreak and be in the Pacific Ocean by sunset, I was like, what are we doing? How are we not protecting the environment? That's not political. Like the environment, the earth doesn't care how you vote. And so I'd worked with Global Green for a really long time. It was one of my first forays into, real big organized activism. And they're headquartered in Louisiana. And I got a call from my buddy, who's a lawyer for them, who said, the news is lying and they're not covering this stuff. It is an absolute disaster zone down here. What we're watching in the water is horrific. What we're seeing out of the water is horrific. They are busing in young men from the most low-income Black neighborhoods in Louisiana to come clean this stuff up, and they won't let them wear respirators because they said it looks scary on TV. All these kids are gonna get cancer and they're gonna make minimum wage to do it, and they're gonna have no recourse afterwards because they're all signing waivers. And these boys were getting off school buses to come and clean up toxic waste. And I was like, well, we're not doing that. I'll get on Twitter. And that's what started it. I said, if they're not gonna tell the truth, I can. So I spent a week on set tweeting about how I was gonna go to Louisiana, and by Saturday, I was on the beach with 6 lawyers and a film crew and the sheriff screaming at me, telling me I was gonna get strip searched and washed down with decontamination fluid by his buddy over there who'd really like it. And I was like, my family are crazy Italians from New Jersey, try me. Like, you're not prepared for what's under here, sir. And it was a really interesting moment because I just kept posting pictures of what I saw, quotes from what people were saying. And by Monday, I was doing a satellite media tour, which I'm used to doing for a show or a movie. But I was sitting like this, looking into a camera, patching into news stations all over America. And I think I was 27 or 28. And I went, okay, we can all really do something. And was it scary to think I was gonna get arrested? Yeah. Was it that scary? Not enough to make me quit. But it was a moment where I realized this thing I do for a living, I can use for us in a way that's bigger. And it just changed the course of my life. Then it wasn't just go to the event and help us on the ground and show up at the thing. And, if you come, we can get some more press here. It was like, oh no, I'll show up on the ground and be absolutely your worst nightmare, but in a good way for us. And I don't think that has ever left me.
And you talked about how you are able to use your platform for that unbelievably powerful and effective activism. Also talk about, which you've also done, how you use your storytelling. How, storytelling, and this is something that, newsflash, I'm obsessed with, and I see a friend in the room here who is also obsessed with it, is, how you change social norms through storytelling and how you change public consciousness and culture change. So talk more about that too.
I think sometimes we forget how powerful it is to be with people. And one of the really interesting things about being a creative is that we gather people. And when you see the shift in terms of what people believe based on who's being represented, it's real. I mean, there is data. It's Pride Month. I have to talk about this. There is data that shows what happened to American public opinion across the years that Will and Grace was on TV. Because suddenly, everybody knew a gay person. Even if there wasn't someone out in your town, there was clearly someone gay in your town. Even if you didn't think you knew a gay or a queer person, you did. You knew Will, you knew Jack, you knew this cast of characters, and you went, oh, I love them. And their friends love them, and it shifted. And now, and forgive me if I'm off, but I do believe this to be true. A friend just talked to me about this last week. 8 in 10 Americans knows a gay person. Mm-hmm. So the attitude toward marriage equality has shifted. The attitude toward people's civil rights have shifted. Granted, the architects of Project 2025 want to roll all these rights back. And it's ironic to me that anyone could talk about a free America and then say to certain citizens, well, if you go on a road trip from the East Coast to the West Coast, you'll have rights depending on what state you're in. No, it doesn't work like that. It shouldn't work like that. But I don't take that stuff lightly. I don't take it lightly that for all of its faults even, the first show I did that I do love, even though there's moments that were so cringe, started a lot of us young women off in these stereotypical positions. And I think we were just so ourselves, and we would call when we'd get these scripts and say, well, why would she do this? And why would this person do that? And do you really think this is fair? And I honestly think the writers just got sick of hearing from us. So they just let us be different. And my character got to create and run her own incredible business. She was like the OG entrepreneur. My best friend's character ran a record label. Like, the girls crushed on that show by the end. And all the young women that I meet want to be creatives. They want to be CEOs. They want lives that fulfill them individually as well as building family or not in whatever way they desire. And I grew up not really seeing women in those roles. I mean, we're in DC. I would be remiss not to say, I grew up in the era where Hillary Clinton was lambasted for trying to get universal health care for American children. Because she said, what do you want me to do? Not use the platform, stay home and bake cookies? You think that woman hasn't baked cookies? She literally is a superhero. She can do everything. The whole point was, I'm in a position where I can advocate for children like mine and yours, and I should do that. I should spend the privilege of this platform. And it was, crisis point, 1992, nightmare. So I don't take it lightly that when you watch people live, their lives get normalized to you. When you watch people succeed, you believe you can succeed. Storytelling is often treated, like this silly thing, but when humans have nothing, they still make art. And I do think it's the thing that sustains us. And so I'm really proud in whatever way I do to be in this like weird circus of performer people. And I'm very grateful that it's given me the opportunities to come and advocate in places like this.
And do you remember the moment when you realized that power, or is there not a moment?
Oh gosh. Like the power of storytelling. I think for my whole life I've seen it. You know, I know what it felt like to watch Murphy Brown. She was my idol, like my idol. As a little kid, you know, all the kids wanted to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and I was like, I want to watch Murphy Brown. I think it's no accident that I wound up, you know, thinking I wanted to get a BFA in theater and then choosing to study journalism and splitting my education across that landscape. I remember what it felt like to watch Will and Grace, because I happened to grow up in a community with a dad who's an artist and a mom who ran a business. And I grew up in a very diverse, very queer Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s. And so it was cool to see people who didn't grow up in a community like mine, like my friends, or people who seemed like my friends that they didn't know before. You know, I remember what a big deal it felt like to watch the first episode of Grey's Anatomy and be like, wait, the chick is ghosting the guy? Oh, okay. Okay, Ellen Pompeo. And then what it felt like to see Shonda become Shonda, and then for Kerry Washington to be the lead of Scandal, to be the first Black woman with a show on ABC like that. I mean, it, you know, I remember what it felt like. And I also, I know what it feels like to watch people win, even if they're not exactly me, to go look at her do it. Because the more she wins, the more I win. The more she changes an opinion, the more someone will give me an opportunity to do something unexpected. And so I hope that whether it's through storytelling, story watching, community activism, I hope that we can start to see other people's success as our own. It adds to our collective power. It's not you versus me or me versus them. It's not that. Old systems want us to think in old ways. And that I think is like the magic of the story, is it always allows you to see something new.
That's a great thought. So you're being willing to use your platform. You're being quite outspoken about the range of issues and beyond that we've talked about, does come with risk. And I just wanted to ask you, how do you balance that and navigate that, making yourself vulnerable and just trying to be resilient at the same time as you're so in the public eye?
It's really hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard. It has, in certain ways, changed who I am as a person. I don't move through the world the way that I used to. I am hyper vigilant to the point that I creep out all my friends, because if we're in a crowd, I have eyes on every doorway. I know every person with a phone out, every person spotting. I see the guy up there who's calling the friend and pointing to somebody's, I am aware of all of it. I think I would be a great bodyguard. I'm too short, apparently. So say the professionals, but I would really be on top of it. Humor helps. But yeah, it's hard. You know, it is a surreal experience when you speak truth to power, and rather than saying, I disagree with you, people send you death threats. You know, you have to figure out which ones are worth investigating, which is sort of feels like you're playing Russian roulette all the time. It is disconcerting also because people think, and I think this is true for all of us, I want to be clear, it's not just like being a public figure, though it's worse. I think the more public you get, the worse it gets. because, you know, at current, there's, I don't know, across, let's say, like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, there's like 7 million people who pay attention a day to my stuff. There's still just one of me. There was one of me when it was 1,000 people, and there's still just one of me. And it is difficult to navigate being a three-dimensional human with three-dimensional scars and a three-dimensional life that gets flattened into a two-dimensional screen, and the teeny tiny parts of you that people see or that they are told about or that someone's writing fan fiction about and then someone thinks is real, which I've had happen, and it's a really surreal experience. Like, they think that's all of who you are. And the irony of it, and what takes a really long time to learn, is that the more you try to push back on what isn't true, the more you give it any weight at all. Mm-hmm. And it can be infuriating to go, today I want to burn it down. Today I want to publish the thing and just say it and let them all know and do. But for what? That's a two-dimensional life, and I'm a three-dimensional person. But it requires a practice. It requires a self-inventory. It requires like a certain level of being your own therapist. And I also have a great therapist, to be clear. But you have to do so much work to survive it. And so it isn't lost on me why young people are having such a hard time. Why at the stage of neurodevelopment they're at 16, their high school does feel like the whole world. Their high school to them feels like 7 million plus to me. And I know how hard it is, and I am an adult. And I went through high school without being on the internet. And so I don't fault these kids for feeling like it is unsurvivable. I get it. I have had days where I do not get out of bed, and my friends have come over and like literally crawled in bed with me and been like, cool, let's cancel everything. What rom-com are we watching? We brought pizza. And I'm like, I'm so loved. This is real. This is real. And, you know, that's just being a person talked about. When you layer the political engagement, when you layer the speaking truth to power, when you layer the refusing to be silenced by, to be clear, a current fascist president, it comes with threats of violence. It comes with stuff that you just, like, we're not supposed to do it like this, but we have to. And I will say the thing that I think has shifted a lot of things for me is I don't put all of my energy out into the world anymore. I used to. I was like, this is my calling. This is my jam. Like, this is it. And now I actually really like my life in the four walls of my home. And in the four walls of that home, I should not have looked at you at that point. In the four walls of my home are two little people. And yeah, sometimes I shift what I'm willing to engage with and how far I'm willing to go on something, because it's not just me on the receiving end of the worst of it anymore. And it is my job to protect those little people. And it's all part of it. And I always feel like I'm learning, and I always feel like I'm navigating. And, you know, the push and pull of it, I never want to lie to people about, because there's a lot of people who do what I do and they're like, it's so great, I'm the luckiest person in the world. And I'm like, aren't we just actually upholding like a violent white heteronormative patriarchy when we do that? When we say it treats us well and it doesn't? Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's like the more grounded I get and the more honest I can be and the more loving I can be and the more gentle I can be. And like, yeah, I don't have anything to hide. I'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of that for sure, because it's true. And maybe it'll make somebody else who's dealing with this on, I don't know, their college campus or in their workplace feel a little bit less alone.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so sorry that
Hey,
has
I
to
know you
happen.
get it too.
But I'm still sorry.
And I'm sorry
And I'm so grateful to you for putting yourself out there and making what really is, and for saying that, for what really is the sacrifice, which you don't have to do. You could have led a different life. And I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to ask you the same question with a totally different intonation. So I was
Okay.
going to say, what gives you strength? Or where do you find your strength? And now I'm going to ask you, like, where do you find your strength? Like, how can you be that great?
It's just who I am. I don't know how else to explain it, and I don't mean great. I'm not like you guys. I am amazing. I'm not.
I said that. You didn't say that.
It's but it's like I'm just as flawed as the next person. And I mentioned like my generations of crazy Italian family in New Jersey. Like I have a short fuse in a lot of places, which I think helps fuel that rage at injustice. And it's a thing I work on, but it is a thing that burns in me. It's like that's the fire I can't put out. There's nothing that I feel in my bones that I need to do forever in terms of work. I love it, don't get me wrong. I love writing, I love acting, I love making movies, I love producing, I love storytelling. I love doing all the nerdy journalism stuff that I do literally every day, much to the chagrin of my agents who are like, please do more of the actual theatrical work. And I'm like, I'm busy studying this thing that happened in 1991. But I can't stop. It's so important to me. And maybe it's part of the fuel that I take on a set when I play someone, because I think about real people's stories. And maybe it's the thing I'll just do forever. I don't really know. I just can't not care. And I'm learning to be in communication with my loved ones in real time more, which is giving me strength in ways I didn't have it. And what I mean by that, in case anyone out there is similar to me, I used to really noodle on things privately. I'd think about it, I'd figure it out, I'd repeat the thing, looking for the different outcome. I would always try to solve the problem. And then when I felt like I had the lesson and I either solved it or I moved on or whatever, I would feel good about it and then I'd be able to talk about it. And what I realized a couple of years ago was that I was living a lot of my life alone in the present and sharing about the present and the future. So when I was in the present, I was actually really alone and talking a lot about the past. And that was one of those things I couldn't unsee. Like once I saw it, I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to deal with this. 2 appointments with the therapist this week. But I think particularly for women who are so encouraged to juggle all of our own plates and everyone else's, because God forbid a plate ever gets put down. Or I suppose I should say spin. That's the right analogy, right? We spin. You juggle balls anyway. A little dyslexic. I just went like, if I'm carrying all the things all the time that I can't ask a question or reflect on something and then wake up in the morning having let it set in and said, I do feel this, or, I changed my mind. What I really think is I never gave myself the space to do that for me. And that is actually where I feel opposite of strength. It's where I feel the weakest, the shakiest, if you will. It's new to be really vulnerable in real time, but it's helping. It's like in the point of my sort of wobbly kneed, like, weak muscles, I feel strong that I'm using them at all. So I would say that it's my people. It's like the insatiability that drives everyone who loves me crazy and that makes them proud of me. And then it's this new thing I'm learning to do just as myself that feels different. And it feels, I don't know what this is. I don't know what the word for this is. It just feels right. I feel like I'm more in my body, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to shift gears to the next generation.
The youth.
Yeah, not that you're or I am going anywhere, but you've spoken in the past about the importance of amplifying younger voices, other voices, especially younger women and activists. So how do you do that? How do you pay it forward?
Oh, I just love us, to be clear. Like, I talk about this a lot. I am so lucky when I look at you. I mean, the fact that I have your phone number, like I have Jen Klein's phone number. Are we okay? Like, Elise, what? You know, the mentorship I've received from women in my life, you know, from my mom to Chelsea Handler to like, what a word I'm about to say, 2 words, name. Like Michelle Obama, are we okay? Like working on the Girl Project, I did that with her. She just came on my podcast, you guys, and I was like, what is happening? What's going on? And she was like, hi, honey, I love you. And I went, ah! And she was like, can you stop doing that? And I was like, sorry, it's just never gonna not be weird for me when you say things like that to me. This is pretty cool. Like the women that I've learned from, you know, in the sandwich space between my mom and I, are like the coolest, most inspiring, amazing people. And I feel that way about the flip side, the women, you know, in between me and the kids. Like, my young friends are amazing. People talk about like, oh, well, you know, Gen Z getting fired at greater numbers than whatever. I'm like, is it that, or are they just unwilling to put up with your bullshit? Like, I'm so inspired by everyone in my life. You know, I feel incredibly lucky to have come up with my friend Ziad Ahmed, who was he was in high school, starting reporting for young people. And I was like, you're great. You know, Dylan Mulvaney, she's 26 years old, one of my dearest friends, 26, and has become a target for everything that is wrong with the world to spit at her because she just wants to be who she is and go see Broadway shows. Same. Like, what? And her resilience and her thoughtfulness and the way she chooses to speak to people, whether they're young people in the LGBTQ community, whether they're young trans people, or they're just young kids who don't really know that it's okay to like what they like and be who they are. I am blown away by her every day. And one of the things I feel really grateful for is that the focus on community, the desire to help translate the truth that the political is personal, that we're all in this together, the byproduct of that learning is this incredible intergenerational group of friends that it's given me, you know, from young staffers at I Am a Voter to folks who've, you know, worked in the White House under multiple presidents for 40 years. Like, I literally know the most interesting people just from showing up and listening to what's going on with folks who also care about community. And so my hope and my pleasure, my hope is that everyone will do it. And like, the thing I like to do the most is brag about my friends. Be like, look at what this amazing young person is doing. Look at that. Like, it's the most fun for me to amplify other people's work, other people's books, other people's voices. Like, what a gift that I get to do that.
Well, thank you for using it because it's working. And I am so sad to say that we are out of time.
Have we run out? Am I
Yes.
long-winded or something? I had no idea.
No, you are not. But we could go on for hours because there's so much to talk about. But I just want to thank everyone for joining us on Vital Voices Live. And a huge thank you to you, Sophia Bush, for your courage, your clarity, and your unwavering commitment to making the world a more just, more inclusive, and more human place. These are the conversations that move us forward. These are the conversations that certainly move me forward. We're so glad you were here, and we'll see you next time.